Welcome to the Perfect Place to Put a Practice podcast by Scott McDonald and DrDemographics.com, the best source of demographic, psychographic, and marketing information for professionals.
Hello, this is Scott McDonald, and welcome to the Perfect Place to Put a Practice podcast offered on DrDemographics.com. Now, just to remind you, something you may or may not know, we're having a big sale on demographic and marketing telephone consultations during the month of December. The sale will only go on for another couple of weeks, and so don't delay. Even if you're not quite ready to talk, it would be a very good idea to get your time slot in advance. It's just wise things to do at the time of year. Now, the discount code is TELEDEC50, TELEDEC 50. I've been getting many calls on issues relating to what we're going to talk about today, and that is how to start a practice. Now, many doctors want to know if it's a good idea to start up or to purchase a practice. Now, let me lay down this predicate to start. You will never become wealthy working for someone else. Ever. Not ever. You may lead a satisfying life and know the joys of a happy home and many enjoyable inner peace. But being an employee is what you are, and there is something to be said for that approach in life. It appeals to those who don't like risk. It also is good for those who prefer to wear suspenders and a belt. And I have no criticism at all for someone who wants to go forward in their career like this. But if you want to get the most financial reward out of a dental career, you have to own a practice. Now, there are some advocates for corporate dentistry, and that is just fine. There are some who are proponents of having experts manage your practice for you. Terrific. But I still believe that with risk comes rewards. And with rewards, there's going to be risk. And that is the way of the world. Now, that being said, if you want to own a practice, you will want to learn how to manage and to promote that practice as early in your career as you possibly can. Some people put it off, and I think it rather hurts them. Now, these are skills that are only going to hurt your career if you don't understand the basics at very least. And I would not assume that you will want to do this without getting competent help along the way from, let's say, experts and consultants. Hey, I happen to be an expert in finding places to practice that are good for you. Consultants exist in almost every aspect of dentistry, and many of them I trust. Now, the decision to start up or to purchase is often dependent based upon the area in which you want to practice. Now, if you're in the middle of a location that is not showing any growth, or worse, is losing population, a startup is going to be heavy lifting. What you're really doing in this early phase in your career and in the practice building part is putting together a patient base. Now, in the dark ages, this meant signing up for a dental insurance company that would feed you patients at a fee, or a reduced fee on your part, that will keep the lights on. Choosing the right insurance plan was a prudent way to grow and to sustain a practice. Now, as you are well aware, these fees or reimbursements are not quite as profitable as they once were. In other words, you got to be more careful than before. In fact, it is not hard to imagine that you will lose your investment in practice if you're not careful in what plans you're willing to accept. Certainly not all of them are profitable. And that is certainly not my area of expertise, I admit. But the world has shifted a little in the last, few years, and a couple of fundamental ways you need to know. In other words, finding yourself in practice in a location with a population with a desirable demographic character is becoming important, more important than ever. And if you are in a location, this is increasing population, and that population is willing and able to support its demands for dental care, you are in a good place. If not, don't think of it. You see, a startup practice is viable because it can increase its patient base and production sufficiently to support the practice's debt service. Now let's look at the alternatives for just a second. In an area that does not have positive growth or is in fact shrinking, and if the area does not have a positive, desirable demographic character, the simple fact that the practice already has a patient base that is willing to spend on dentistry is a strong mitigating factor in favor of a purchase. Now, granted, in these situations, the population may cut back to a degree on what it is willing to spend out of pocket on dentistry. And granted, there are many that have a rising median age. But that does not mean that the practice in that location won't survive. Remember, when places don't grow, the population tends to age. But if a startup practice is the chosen alternative, it can be pretty scary. Now let's consider the real world for a moment. Almost everyone will agree that the number of dental practices for sale, particularly those that are both stable and mature, are becoming fewer. At the same time, those that are for sale are more expensive in their asking price relative to the amount of the production that they provide, thus putting them out of the reach of those without, stellar credit or who don't want to undertake a big risk. You may owe a lot of money. The result is, if there are not enough practices for sale, and those that are on the market are demanding a high price, the only alternative is to create a startup practice. Now, let me just say here, I think most dentists should consider getting into practice ownership positions, and when the risks are reasonable, practice purchase is absolutely the best option. Absolutely. The trouble is that reasonable is really not present in many locations in the United States. In other words, reasonable isn't ubiquitous. Now that is when your friendly neighborhood demographer, can come in handy. It is our business to provide reasonable and realistic recommendations on where to go based upon the demographics of a location. Now just keep in mind, we are looking at the demographic characteristics of the patient base. In other words, the quality of the potential patients from the standpoint of practice production, as well as the raw numbers on population size and the trends for growth. That's what we do. The conclusion is that some places are simply not going to support a startup practice as the risks become prohibitive. Now, does that mean that a corporate practice will find those types of locations always profitable, while a private practitioner will not? Well, the answer is maybe. You see, corporate practices are inherently more cost efficient, but it does not mean that they are immune to market forces imposed by a changing demographic. In talking to some of these practice owners, they, the corporate practice owners, report that they lose a little on every deal, but they make it up in volume. You see the problem there, right? The ability to withstand economic and demographic downturns, well, is certainly easier for them than for you, but they still have to pay the piper. You can't suspend gravity forever. And for this simple reason, I implore you to do some good old-fashioned market research to find locations that are viable. Now remember that there is a risk to success, and those who are willing to work hard and to take the necessary risks will usually come out the winners. Usually. But I just said usually, right? There is no guarantee in business or in practice. But there is a certainty that is almost always true. If you risk nothing, you gain nothing. Nothing at all. Good research just mitigates those risks. And that's what we're here to help you with. please contact us at drdemographics.com. We can help, and don't forget our special promotion on telephone consultations for this month. I'm Scott McDonald, and thanks so much for watching.